with Ivan Bebek, co-founder, chair, CEO, and director of Coppernico Metals. Can you give us a high-level overview of Coppernico before we begin, Ivan?
Yes, so Coppernico Metals is a base metal explorer in South America. The company has an asset that's well known to the street as Sombrero. It's a project that we went after since 2015 in a company called Oren Resources, and we spent about 8 years and over $30 million waiting for this project to come online, which it certainly is right now. We've got social access and are about to get our first drill permits. The company was spun out of Oren Resources at the end of 2020 with the ambitions of coming online with Sombrero and drilling. It took us a few extra years. COVID certainly played a role in that, but we're finally here at the perfect point of market to go explore for one of the world's largest, hopefully, copper gold discoveries and a possible extensions of a world-class mining belt in southern Peru.
Why is Peru an attractive jurisdiction for junior mining companies?
So Peru first intrigued us, because of the scale that it offers. Just a bit about my background. I've been part of a 5 million ounce gold discovery from zero in Ghana, West Africa. My partners and I felt that was a threshold, and Ghana has large scale discoveries. And then we went on to Mexico and tried to repeat that success. And we ended up selling Caden Resources to Agnico Eagle in 2015. So from those two transactions, it raised our bar to look for something bigger. We met some gentlemen from Newmont, and we wanted to find something that would make a top 10 global discovery. And then this feat is very expensive in terms of time and capital, as it's taken us about 8 years to get to this point. But we went after things that could move the needle, and Peru certainly checked all those boxes. Peru has had many presidents, I think 7 since I've been in country with Oren and now Coppernico Metals, but it's never disrupted the mining sector. It's never nationalized it while we've been there. There's never been any issues. There's long-term mining laws that have been in place, great mining codes. The only place I see improvement in Peru is on the permitting, and they've certainly made some recent efforts there to shorten some of those timelines to be able to get drill access permits in the exploration phase. The great thing about Peru, Chile, and Argentina, they're all somewhat competitive about getting capital and investment into their country. And Peru most certainly is leading the way, I believe, in terms of major mines and very favorable mining environment to be in. So scale drew us there. Grade, we still feel it's largely underexplored. And this comes down to certain areas of Peru that you cannot access socially. It takes time to get in there. And that's really what our story has been, is unlocking an 8-year effort to build really strong, great relationships with communities in a region that hasn't seen modern exploration prior by anyone else.
They've supposedly moved the 2026 elections in Peru to April 2024. Do you think this will impact your exploration plans at Sombrero?
Personally, I think there could be a change. There could be continuance. Every single province went centric, which is aligned with Dina Boluarte, the current president of the country. I think that going forward, whether it's left or right, it won't matter. Mining has never stopped in Peru when the elections have gone to the left or to the right. I think there's a really hard press in South America. You've seen it in Argentina. You're seeing it potentially in Ecuador here and Brazil. You're seeing a lot of the countries looking at the opportunity to really strengthen their economy through their natural resources and attracting foreign capital. So I think whether it's left or right, you're going to see a substantial support for the mining sector. And the changes that are being made right now are quite substantial and quite significant to bring us online. And whether there's changes again or not, we'll be well into drilling and we'll be somewhat immune to any kind of significant changes from a fundamental perspective. As far as perception goes, I think that we've all seen COVID. We've all seen, what's happened globally. We've seen economies excel and we've seen them contract, or contracting now, and inflation being an issue. And there's a lot of challenges out there. We're seeing it in these small communities away from the main capital cities. So I think that the one way they're going to solve a lot of this or help it will be by getting the mining companies, explorers online to bring more capital in the countries and to help communities the way we have. So personally, I don't think the change would be any different than the last 7 presidents in the last 8 years we've seen. I think we're going to strive ahead, but I think it's something to follow just in general in South America or anywhere. But right now, we think it's on a strong trajectory to going in a good direction. There's a shortage of mines. There's the need for more, and metal prices are starting to improve. And I think that's going to result in a country being somewhat supportive to the sector.
So let's talk about the flagship Sombrero project. This is a drill-ready copper porphyry skarn target. Walk us through the work done over the past 8 years to generate the drill targets and what geological data supports the targets.
We learned of this project back in 2015 from a gentleman by the name of Miguel Cardozo. Miguel was famous in Peru for being part of the Yanacocha discovery for Newmont, which is a 60 million ounce gold discovery. His vision initially was that the Andahuaylas Yari Belt, which hosts mines such as Las Bambas, Tintaya, and Tecapay, Las Chancas, some of the larger ones in the world, continued to the west by about 200 kilometers. And if you look at the name of the asset, Sombrero, it means hat in Spanish. And that's exactly what the case was here. Volcanic cover has covered a lot of the key intrusions and the limestone rock units that host the mineralization that make up some of those mines on the eastern side of the belt. So through some erosional windows, there was observed high-grade copper and gold, which was intriguing. A lot of majors looked at this back in the 2000 era, 2001, and it was perceived to be too young of a date of intrusions, or the volcanics were mapped Miocene by the Peruvian government. And no one did the detailed work and map these intrusions to see if they were occurring at the same time that Las Bambas and the major mines next door were occurring as. We came onto the project quite extensively with thorough work programs from 2018 through 2020. We had a chance to do geophysics, geochemistry, mapping, channel sampling, extensive channel sampling. And we were very fortunate that we also found some historical drill holes that were drilled by a steel company out of Peru named Aceros Arequipa, was looking for iron ore. And they had drilled about 8 holes on the eastern side of our first Sombrero main target, and they started to hit 110 meters of 0.5 or 0.58 copper gold equivalent. And those holes really fingerprinted the geophysics that we had done. They showed us not only mineralization in the oxide, but also in the actual sulfides with the magnetite exoskarn that was quite prevalent. And it gave us the confidence that our 10-kilometer long geophysical signature with multiple channel samples on surface and numerous rock samples was giving us confidence that the third dimension was really there. The appeal was scale. The appeal most certainly was grade. And we've seen in numerous areas, trenching as high as 0.67 over 110 meters, 200 meters plus a 0.5% copper on surface. So we got width as well, which is critical towards looking for volume. The real breakthrough was the age dating, and that was the last proponent of our technical work that we did. We got to take 2 samples, thinking that was quite confirmatory as a junior explorer. And then several majors signed CAs and came to the project, and they took about 25 age dating samples in various intrusions throughout our first few main targets. And they came up with all the same age and era, which is Eocene, as all the mines next door on the Andahuaylas Yari Belt, which really strengthened our confidence. It also identified polyphase intrusions, so multiple pulses of events of mineralization was pumping into the system. So this is really the true story. We are drill ready. We have a very ambitious look at our first target. We can drill about 20 to 30,000 meters and still be in our first targets over the next couple of years, without looking at additional targets in the pipeline and going to depth. And our targets are all from surface. The first 400 meters, our vision is to drill open pit, shallow mineralization targeting and see what we can come up with in terms of grade and width to see if it's comparable to what we've seen on surface in some of the historical drill holes.
So on that topic, what are the unanswered questions that will begin to be answered with the initial drilling, and what would you consider success from the first pass?
So the key target, when we simplify this down to the most simplest basic aspects, is the contact between the Ferrobamba limestone, various sediments and other limestone units, which are all mineralized on surface, and the intrusion that's interacting. And that contact point is where the skarn is going to form. We also have porphyry mineralization and targets adjacent to the skarn, which is substantial as well. But that key contact, the biggest question we have is what are the dimensions? What is the grade going to be, and what is the width going to be? And that's going to be really the multi-billion-dollar question that we get answered. The first program, unfortunately, will not reveal the entire scale of the project. This is going to take at least 2 to 3 years to go around the perimeter of these contacts that we've mapped and identified. And that's a really good problem to have. It really shows as something that could be as big as a Las Bambas or one of those major mines next door. But really, the key answer we want to see is the grade and the width, and that's really where we start.
And so, what would a successful result be for you?
Anything in the 50 meters of anywhere around 0.5% or better would be an excellent start. It would give us the confidence. If you're familiar with skarns, they are quite variable. They're some of the richest deposits in the world, and that's something that's really appealing to us in this environment. There's no shortage of copper globally, but there is a shortage of high quality, high grade copper. And so far, we're starting with a lot of grade on surface, a lot of potential for grade. So as long as we see the width, we're not too concerned about the grade. And yeah, minimum 50 meters and a good grade around 0.5% copper in that range or better. And I think we're off to the races to something that could really scale over time.
The much anticipated social access agreement was completed in November last year. What does this mean for the company, and how has Coppernico helped to support local communities to date?
That's a great question, and it's it's a paradigm event for us. Very, very long effort to get here. Special appreciation to our SVP of Corporate Development, Christian Rios, and his community team that really made this happen. We stepped onto Sombrero back in 2015, and we started to see the potential early. We see a lot of probable evidence that there could be a major high-grade discovery here. And what we did was we took on the attitude that could go the distance. This could be a major mine. And from our past experiences in Ghana, West Africa, and Mexico, we've always thrived with the communities. We've been innovative with our approach, and that hasn't changed. What Christian and his team did was they brought in Agradias, which is an agricultural program. It's where the government funds certain programs that we sponsor, and they provide grants. The community also invests into these programs. Our project's at about 39 to 4,000 meters. So there's a shortage of iron, red meat in the Andes. And that's where we started, bringing in French cows, Australian lambs, and eventually fish farms and various other agricultural benefits to these communities. And I think that's something we're most proud of, what we definitely are to date, because the community success is truly our success. And that's working both ways so far. But they got a chance to know us, and we got a chance to impact them in a very sustainable manner going forward and get to know each individual member of this community. So that was a paramount effort by us. It took longer. It was way more expensive. It was very tough on shareholders to wait this period of time for it. But the prize was big enough and the opportunity probable enough for potentially for this big discovery that we're going for, that we were happy to do it. And no matter what we find or don't find, these communities will benefit for decades to come. They now have farming at elevation in the Andes, and that's something we're very proud of. What it does for the project, it allows us to provide jobs, which is another benefit to the communities, and to conduct our first ever drill program. So where we are today as we do this interview, we are in the final stages of completing our drill permit, and we should have it. We are hoping with great anticipation to have it by the end of this month of March 2024, but we see no more hurdles in the way except for the administrative approval of the permit going forward. So very, very bullish that we're going to be able to turn a drill here within 60 to 90 days of as I'm speaking with this interview, and looking very forward to it.
How many pads holes will that permit allow?
Yeah, so we have 38 pads permitted. We can drill 48 holes, and that's a remarkable start to something of this consequence. As we start drilling, and the moment we start to see, the success we're looking for early on, we'll apply for a much more advanced permit. We're also working on neighboring community access agreements on robust targets that we plan to bring in the pipeline behind the Sombrero main target area. So it's going to be a perpetual timeline of targets to go after, and but 38 pads with 48 holes is where we're going to start, and that'll give us a significant answer to the big question: is this really that big, large, scalable, mineralized scar and porphyry system, much like Las Bambas and Tintai and some of the mines next door? And then that's what we're really looking for here in the not too far future.
So you have two ex-BHP vice presidents on the board of directors, with Keenan Jennings joining in January this year. What is it about Sombrero and the management team that has given them the confidence to join the company as directors?
That's a great question. And, the one thing you cannot buy, or two things you cannot buy, is time and experience. And in my career, I followed some incredibly great mine finders, and I've learned from them of how these mines are found. As I've mentioned to you previously in this webinar, there's been several age dating samples taken by majors, and there's been majors who pursued this asset with us for the last 4 or 5 years. Quite obviously, BHP is obviously one of them, with the head of exploration from BHP as of last year retiring from BHP, joining our board here in January and investing into the company. Both Antonio and Keenan Jennings bring a tremendous wealth of experience and knowledge. Antonio Ribas's background at BHP was VP of Geosciences, which is quality of the exploration effort, quality of the technical work being done. As a financier, that's something you want to underpin all of the dollars that you're spending in the field. Keenan Jennings is a very generative, very deep technically, but also has an MBA. He has a very good commercial mindset towards exploration, and he brings in a very fit to purpose approach. He's very much about, let's get to the quickest path to the most important answer, and let's save as much time as we can, but drill this intelligently in it. And his big thing has been, let's scale the discovery over time. So we have a combination of quality and visual or visionary thinking towards the commercialization of a discovery here. And when you sit down with them and you listen to them talk about how they'd approach the project, what kind of strategies they would take, you really feel the presence of BHP in the boardroom in terms of the strength of the big exploration efforts they've made. And the last part is they've seen almost everything around the globe of interest in terms of copper type of discoveries like this, and getting that confidence from them to join the board at this juncture, right as we go drill it, is about the best case, for us to get that experience in at the right time as we go and explore something that could make, as we're trying to find one of the top 10 global discoveries for copper at a time when copper and gold are looking like they could really perform for investors over the next few years.
So Coppernico is an unlisted reporting issuer. When do you plan to list the company on exchanges? How much cash do you have on hand, and how much do you need to raise for the initial drilling program at Sombrero?
We waited patiently or impatiently for the social access, which we got in November. So technically, once we got the access and we could resume work, we could list the company. Work is active, ongoing on the project right now. I'm getting updates daily from the field. There's a lot of really positive interpretations coming back on new perspectives of existing and new targets, which is really encouraging to hear as we look for the final drill permits. We are in the last few dollars of our treasury. We will have to go back to raise capital in April, which is next month. But we plan to raise at least 18 months of working capital, which is about $8.5 million, including 3,000 meters of drilling. And that will give us a very solid footing as a bare minimum. We've talked about this project very lightly in the past few weeks through PDAC, and we're seeing a lot of interest in the copper space. And if we take more capital, it's going to be price contingent and investor qualified, to make sure we can keep adding to our registry here and come out with, my perfect world would be multiple phases of testing on the first target without having to go back to market for more capital, so that investors could benefit from a discovery without the need to raise more, or if discoveries take time, without any significant pressure on the company there in terms of performance. We are very shareholder focused because we're very aligned with shareholders. I've made an investment into Oren of about $5.5 million and another 400,000 or so into Coppernico since the splitting of the companies. That's the way I view this company, as a major shareholder, and I treat it that way, and that's the way we're going to treat it when we come to market. So we're looking to be strategic with our raise that we're going to do here in April, as we prepare to do that as the last final step to list our company, and we're going for the Toronto Stock Exchange to list there, and that's why the 18 months of working capital.
Let's talk about the commodity at heart here. What is your view on the copper market right now?
If you follow BMO, if you follow several analysts around the world, and I think in short, the world was not ready for the copper demand that was coming from the electrification, the modernization of the planet. Populations have more than doubled in the last 30 years, and the pace of the current modernization, electrification is quite substantial. So we see a very, very strong demand curve. I think everyone does. Everyone sees it. But at the same time, there is a shortage of quality copper discoveries. We like to look at the copper market as, price sensitive, more mines come online or not, but mines are not. They're very slow to come online. They take time. A discovery like we're looking for could take anywhere from 20 to 30 years to get through social permitting after extensive drilling, which will take quite a while to reveal the opportunity. And there isn't many Sombreros around the world, or there's very few that I'm aware of, or mines that could come online. The second major factor is the top 10 copper producers globally. 3 of them will start to expire in the next 15 years. And when you think about that comment and the other ones that are past halfway in production, and you think about how deep these pits are getting and how expensive it is going to take those copper out of the ground, and then you think about higher copper prices and lower grade mines possibly coming online, you're going to have a very, very slow path to supply to meet the demand needs that are accelerating as we're talking here today. So my view is copper is going to be a perpetual performer. There's no easy answer. It's a very slow market to satisfy from the supply side, and quality is the thing you have to focus on, not quantity of copper out there, because only the quality mines will make it online, and they're the only ones that are going to be impactful on the future demands of copper. So extremely bullish on the outlook of copper. I believe a deficit is anticipated in copper next year for the first time in the past decade or so, and I think that will be heartfelt in the copper price. So our timing could not be better of coming online with potentially a major copper, high quality, high grade copper discovery globally.
Why should investors follow Coppernico this year?
If you take Coppernico from today where we are right now, you're capitalizing on 8 years of time. You're capitalizing on some brilliant geologists that found an opportunity that was never explored before, with enough evidence giving it the probability for grade and scale of a discovery that could make potentially a top 10 copper gold discovery globally. So you've got everything working from the fundamental side of the project as well as the commodity, but you get to save the time and be part of something that's the most coveted right now, which is a world-class, high-quality copper discovery. So you get to take advantage of time, money spent, and drilling some of the best targets globally. And that's where we differentiate ourselves with any other junior or explorer globally, is that I'm not aware of another project that has as much grade, as much scale, and as many targets as we have to date. And that's what you get to be part of if you become a shareholder in Coppernico going forward.
Well, thank you for joining us in our first Real webinar, Ivan. We look forward to the inaugural drilling at Sombrero and the upcoming exploration season in Peru.
Thank you. We as well. Very much appreciate it.